Good evening, Springfield. Welcome to the February 7th, 2022 Township of Springfield Planning Board meeting. Adequate notice has been given in accordance with the sunshine laws. Notice was published on December 16th in the Star Ledger, which happens to be the official newspaper for the Township of Springfield for year 2021, and posted in the Annex building on December 17th, 2021. Can we have a salute to the flag, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America, and to the republic
for which
it stands,
One
one
nation,
nation,
under
under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty,
liberty and
justice for all.
justice for all. Okay, we're getting used to this, I guess. Okay, Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
Yep. Mayor Alexander Kaiser,
Present.
Committeeman Rich Huber,
Here.
Mr. David Barnett,
Here.
Mr. Andrew Schwartz is absent, Mr. Aaron Lawfer,
Here.
Mr. Brian Brendel is absent, Ms. Marissa Ruggiero.
He's here.
I see Marissa. Okay. Mr. Thomas Lopes,
Here.
Mr. Scott Wishna is absent, Vice Chair Sharon Kessel,
Here.
and Chairman Jeffrey Tiger.
I'm here.
We have a quorum, sir.
Perfect. All right, well, before we go into the minutes, we have a few quick announcements. Number one, we'd like to say happy birthday to Mr. Schwartz, who is not with us tonight, but I know it's his 75th birthday or something along that line. Mrs. Kessel's birthday was a few days ago, so happy birthday to her. I won't get into the
Birthday.
75 or 80 years on that one. And then I know Mr. Wishna is missing tonight, and it's his anniversary, so congratulations to him on his anniversary. We have our minutes of January 2022. Did anyone have a chance to review them? They were on the
did.
Google Drive.
I did.
Anyone have any questions or concerns?
I do.
Okay,
will-
Mr. Barnett.
I will make a motion to approve these minutes with the condition that we remove the exclamation point key from Miss Law's computer.
Thank you for reading them.
Anyone want to second it?
Second.
Second that.
We all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I think Mr. Lopes will abstain because he was not at the meeting, correct?
That is true. I wasn't there, so I'll abstain.
Perfect. All right, great. The next thing we have on the agenda real quick is a redevelopment update. Mr. Disco in 5 minutes or less is going to tell us what's going on in town. We haven't had one of those in a while, and everyone asks questions on what's going on. I figure this is the ability for him to tell the board and the public of the redevelopment stuff.
Okay, I'll begin with the Larkin development on the corner of Church Mall and Morris Avenue. Roughly around November 30th, all site work was completed and was given an okay from the engineering office, and he proceeded to then get his certificate of occupancies for all of the residential units. Board members may recall, I think there's 24 residential units, about 15 have been rented out. There were 3 commercial locations or units, I should say. 2 of the 3 are going to go to Lucas Wolf Realtor, and the 3rd unit is undesignated at this time. The developer is pleased with his progress of renting the units. Moving on to Gomes, we had a 3-month period where nothing happened. There was a dispute with the steel supplier, steel manufacturer, and him. Reportedly, it was about in the $1 million range, the dispute. It's been resolved. The last 6 weeks, we've seen activity. And if you've been by recently, you've noticed the steel has now gone up along Morris Avenue, and they've actually turned the corner to Center Street with the steel construction. They were hopeful, of course, to do this long before winter, but it didn't work out that way. So they're back on track. We'll be doing the steel decking between the 1st and 2nd floors soon, within, I'd say, 4 weeks. And After that, you'll start seeing some elevation of the building up to the second floor. They'll be working on the Caldwell side first, as the previous approval, to try to get that side finished and open up the sidewalk. So for the time being, slow and steady after a period of inactivity or minimal activity. The Saks site is conversely the opposite. Probably about 50 to 60 people there working daily. The first two townhome buildings are called A and B on Milburn Avenue. Have insulation, windows, and brickwork. All carpentry formed inside. They will next go into those buildings and do the plumbing and mechanical equipment and start finishing up those walls for those units. The parking garage, which was precast, went up in remarkably quick time, about 4 or 5 levels up in the air. And they are already working on the foundation for the apartment building. In addition to buildings A and B, they've worked on the footings and foundations of 3 or 4 other townhome buildings that are in various beginning stages of the footing and foundation, closer to the rear of the property. So they're working very quickly. All of the sanitary and storm sewers essentially are complete. The fire line and fire hydrants are going in and being tested. And very good activity thus far on the Garden Homes or Saks Fifth Avenue former property. So that's my synopsis of those 3.
Thanks, Mr. Disco. Thanks to you, Mr. Blasico, and John, our administrator, and the township committee. We've really moved us ahead, and we continue to move the township ahead. Slow but sure. Eventually, a lot of this will continue to get redeveloped. Does any members of the board have any questions? Mayor, anything from you?
No, I think Mr. Disco summed it up quite well, and we are finally we're proud that we have made the progress that we have made, and this committee, along with your board, is eager to see this finished and look forward to continuing to push for the progress.
Yep, exactly. Mr. Huber? No? Okay. Mr. Barnett?
I always have something to say, but I won't.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thanks, everyone.
Aaron?
Just have a real quick question. On the property at Church Mall in Morris, do they have any residents? I know they're rented, but is anyone actually living there yet?
Yeah, they've got 15 rented. I'm not sure all 15 are living there, but they do have people living in the building.
I don't know, I'm just curious. Otherwise, I'm good. No other questions.
Marissa?
Nothing for me.
Mr. Lopes?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Jeff.
Mrs. Kessel?
Nothing for me.
Nope. And I have nothing. So just thanks to our professionals really helping us move forward in Springfield. The only other business we have before this is application 7-2021S, which is Nissan World, 146 to 162 Route 22 West, Block 3101, lots 4, 5, and 14 for preliminary and final site plan, conditional use and vehicle storage. This application came before us maybe 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe even, about 2016. So a little over 5 years ago, and this board granted preliminary and final approval for them to construct a new sales building in the area where that used to be the tile store, if everyone remembers. Since then, some work took place and it stopped for many, many years. And I believe that, our resolution to have them construct the building didn't obviously take place. So the zoning officer went in, and here we are, we're back before the board to kind of hear this with a revised amended site plan. So Apu, can we have the applicant's attorney and engineer and any member from Nissan World, can we bring them in?
We have one other person. I don't know if they're part of this application or not.
Well, and maybe if you mention the name, Mr. Disco would know, because he's been working on this.
Matt Luzio. Mr. Quinn or Mr. Bond, should I bring Mr. Luzio forward?
Yeah, he's part of our team.
Thank
Okay.
you.
There we go. Okay, so the attorney is who? Mr. Bond? Who's the attorney?
I am the attorney.
Okay, cool. Okay, can you state your name for the record and kind of introduce the application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jay Bone. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Schiller Pittenger and Galvin PC. We represent the applicant Nissan World. As you described, this is an application seeking approval to demolish the former World of Tile building and create a vehicle storage facility on Lot 4 with the continued use of lots 5 and 14. I have with me tonight the representative of the applicant, Matt Luzio, and our engineer, Tom Quinn. I'd like to have them both sworn now because I anticipate their testimony is not going to be precisely one than the other, but probably have to deal with one or the other depending upon the nature of the question.
Well, Mr. Keynes will take care of that for us.
Okay, gentlemen, would you please both raise your right hands? Do you both swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in proceedings before the board tonight, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's see, I saw Mr. Quinn first. So Matt, you're gonna have to wait. Mr. Quinn, your name is Tom Quinn, Quinn. What are you, sir?
Professional engineer.
You're licensed in the state of New Jersey?
I am, yes, sir.
And by whom are you employed?
EKA Associates, 328 Park Avenue, Scotch Plains, New Jersey.
And Matt, do you regularly do applications before boards? I'm sorry. Tom, do you regularly do applications before boards? You be quiet, Matt.
Oh, yes, yes, sir. I've been before this board within the last couple of months.
Okay, so your license is still valid as of tonight?
Yes, it is.
And you're only going to be qualified as an engineer? You a planner too, Wood?
No, I'm not. Just an
Okay.
engineer.
Matt, turn your mic on. Still off, buddy.
Yes.
Hit the other
There he
button.
is.
There we go.
There we go.
Matt, and who are you and what do you do, bud?
I am the vice president of the Ward Auto Group. We own and operate 10 dealerships in the state of New Jersey, 2 in the state of Michigan.
Okay, we don't care about them. We're Jersey boys and girls here. All right, Jay, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Tom, can you show us the site plan and describe the location of the property and briefly what we're proposing to do?
Indeed, I will. I need to be enabled, however.
Pooh, do you want to pull up the site plan or you want him to do it?
I'm good either way, Mr. Tiger.
I'm happy to do it.
You want, okay, go ahead, then enable Tom to do it.
I believe he should have access.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. So you'll be able to see that, hopefully.
Yep.
Good. Okay. So for the record, the parcel let me just clear up a little bit. So we all should be looking at a set of drawings dated 10/20/2021.
Tom, these are all part of what was submitted as part of the application. There's nothing different here. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
Okay,
Yes, nothing new here. All right, so for the record, we're talking about the 3 parcels that I've highlighted in the center of the key map, identified as lots 4, 5, and 14 in block 3101. As indicated on the zoning chart, these 3 lots are located in the Highway HC, Highway Commercial. Their automobile sales are a permitted conditional use. We'll go through this briefly, but there are 5 conditional use criteria that were met in 2017. This site received a site plan of a different kind, and I'll tell you how this one relates to that one as we go through this. We have, in terms of ordinance relief, we have a number of conditions associated with the existing parking area. So on the existing site, apart from lot 4, but on the existing lots 5 and 14, we have things such as parking aisles not being quite 24 feet wide. Some of the parking stalls are not quite 9 by 18.
Tom, let me interrupt you. All that relief was already granted on a previous
Correct.
application. All right, so we
Correct.
don't need to get into that. Let's just hit the highlights of the new
Okay, so-
application.
Right, in terms of the new application, we have relief required for continuous parking stalls. The ordinance doesn't like to see more than 15. We have 23 in a row. Again, they're separated by islands, but we technically require a waiver for that. We're also requesting a little higher than the average illumination. I think your ordinance requires 0.4, an average of 0.4 foot candles. This site, lot 4, we're requesting 1.4 foot candles. And again, that's actually fairly low for car dealerships, which typically like their parking areas a little more well lit. Essentially, that's it for the new relief. I'm gonna zoom out now and work my way through the site plan.
But
Mr.
Tom,
Quinn,
it's
I'm
your
going to ask
position-
you,
Please, yeah, go ahead.
if you could just stipulate for the board, this is only going to be new car parking, not consumer parking.
That's exactly correct. And that's where I was just gonna start. I'm referring to what I'm looking at now is sheet 2, which is the overall site plan. And you'll see highlighted on the westerly side of the site is that 149 stall parking area. And that entire area, as the chairman just indicated, is entirely for vehicle storage. As a matter of fact, you can see it's got a connection, a new driveway connection to the existing facility, which includes the one building unit, customer parking along Route 22, and some current inventory along the easterly and northerly side. So yes, this entire parking lot is meant for one thing, that's parking inventory. And as you heard indicated before, the current, let me just quickly go sheet 9. This gives you an idea of what the site looks like now. Basically, this was the old site prior to the 2017 approval. The 2017 approval saw the demolition of this whole building and then a slightly larger building and associated parking area. Apparently demolished a portion of the building that's identified in the shaded area, and the remains of the building are still up there, and they kind of paved the front area, and that's how the site exists today. So focusing a little more closely on the site now, leaving the overall site plan and going to, this is a close-up of the proposed development on lot 4. And as I indicated, it's 149 stalls. It's got ingress, egress off Hillside Avenue where one exists today. It's got ingress, a single ingress and single egress out at the near the intersection of Hillside and Route 22. We've created a new connection between lot 5 and this lot. And we also have a driveway out to Commerce Street out the rear, which again is an existing condition. So as you can see, we've separated the parking areas by landscaped islands. So we meet the township's minimum interior landscaping, where I think 5% is required. We're proposing in excess of 8. We've got above grade freestanding lights to illuminate the area. We have a few out at the perimeter, and we have several larger ones located in the islands within the parking lot itself. You'll see the hairpin striping. All required buffers are met. There's no dimensional or C-type relief associated with this. All the parking stall dimensions and required buffers are provided.
So Mr. Quinn, I'll ask some questions that I'm sure the board will ask.
Yeah,
One,
please.
so there's nothing planned. Obviously, this is 149 spots, so we're not going to see in the middle between the two stalls, cars just lining up and it becoming like a free for all of cars. This will be like an orderly parking lot where you'll have cars in the stalls, not off to the sides and not blocking in other cars from backing up and so forth, because you would imagine that the fire department could be using these lanes to get through. So is that correct assumption?
Yes, that's how, look, Chairman, that's how it's designed. I don't operate the facility. I know the operator can speak to that, but yes, it was designed specifically for that, to maintain the clearances so that the emergency vehicles can maneuver through here. And also in the event that the semis bringing cars, the car trailers want to pull in, they can easily pull on and off through this driveway here. So yes, this is designed to operate just the way you see it.
Yeah, could you load cars? And that's another question. And then I want to open to the board, so I don't want it to be only me. But could you load cars through Commerce, like instead of 22? Have you looked at that, or can the tractor pull in off of Hillside onto that area on the top where you have the egress?
To be honest, that's too tight for that maneuver. This sweep in here and sweep back out is much more friendly for car carriers. Fire trucks can easily make this maneuver all the way around, and car carriers probably can too, but this maneuver in and out of Hillside is kind of tight, and anything out to Commerce is really tight because of the geometry back here.
Geometry back there, yeah. Okay, do you want to go over the landscaping plan? Because that's
I was just
where
going to go quickly through the drainage. Again, we're actually reducing slightly the impervious coverage on this site relative to what's not only there now, but relative to what was prior to the 2016 site plan. So the only thing we've proposed is some drainage connections where we've created some islands to generate some landscape buffering. And all we're doing is connecting to existing infrastructure inlets that exist there currently. Landscaping plan, this was this is a quick look at the lighting plan. You see the lights are located on the islands, and we have a few at the perimeter of the site. Mr. Disco mentions in his report that there's some spillage out here that we can look to minimize, which will be no problem. This was also a landscaping plan. You see, this was our initial attempt. It has some landscaping, but rather sparse. In response to memo and a conversation I had with him subsequent to that, we prepared a landscape plan, a different landscape plan, which was submitted to the board in January, and I can share as an exhibit. The rest of the plan is
one second. Should Mr. Disco, should we be Mr. Keynes, Glenn, should we mark this as exhibit 1 or 2? Because it's different from the plan.
Yeah, if it's different from the plans, we should mark it. I think it's exhibit 1, actually, Chairman.
Okay, so let's mark it as exhibit 1 just in case. And do you want to take us through, Mr. Quinn, the landscaping plan? Because I had some concerns around Hillside Avenue of it being a little weak.
Yeah, no, I am. So this is the exhibit that was submitted in anticipation of our meeting in January, when we didn't quite make it. So just let me make sure we get the right dates on here. So this plan is dated 1/7/2022.
Okay.
And
that'll
it
be exhibit
represents a supplemental landscape exhibit subsequent to the plan set that I was just showing you. So again, it's always landscaping a car lot is always difficult, because you can imagine that the retailers like as much visibility as possible. So our initial attempt, we had left a lot of these green islands open. So what we did now was we tried to cluster groups of plants along, you'll see the perimeter. We've taken the same approach on the interior. We've left gaps in this clustering of plants to try to accomplish 2 things. One is to green it up and make it look pretty when you're on site, but the other is to prevent a hedgerow effect so that you can't see through it. And most of these interior plants now, again, this is supplemented tremendously from what we initially proposed, but a lot of these plants are small evergreens like boxwoods, and flowering interests like hydrangeas and peonies. So you've got some evergreens and some flowering interest, again, in clusters, as you see. That dominates the islands. We have clusters out along hillside, the chairman mentioned. These are also like clusters of boxwoods along the back, hydrangeas kind of along the front in a circle, and some peonies and daylilies for colored interest along the side. And that's a repeated pattern along the street frontage. Again, trying to create some nice landscape without totally cutting the view shed off, because that's something that these type of businesses always loathe.
Yeah, but on the Hillside Avenue, no one's, I get it on the Route 22 side, but on the Hillside Avenue, I think we could, no one's coming down in most cases from Hillside saying, oh, I'm going Nissan World from the standpoint. They're coming from the other way or on 22. So I'd like to see some, and we'll get Mr. Disco and the rest of the board, some beefing up of some of the landscaping to, some types of trees that are reasonable as opposed to all the small things, because all these boxwoods and stuff.
Yeah, no, we have just so you know, we do have 15. We're obligated for 15 trees based on the numbers of parking stalls, and we have 15 throughout the site. Along the frontage of Hillside, we have 1, 2, and then a third here. So, but I mean, again, if I can't imagine.
I think there could be more trees.
This.
Yeah, I think there could be more trees added there.
Okay. Okay.
But we can talk through Mr. Disco. Anything further you have? Because I want to get his opinion on some of the stuff before we open up the board.
No, sir.
Anything in his letter dated January 5th that you feel like you cannot deal with?
No, not at all. I'm happy to go through whatever you wanted to clarify. But
we don't.
I have no issue with any of this. No issue with any of it.
Mr. Disco, can I have you provide some color?
Sure. I think one thing we need to confirm, I think it was in Keenan's and mine, is the conditional use satisfaction that used cars are an accessory to new car sales. So whether that's Mr. Quinn or the representative from Nissan World, that has to be put on the record. In terms of the land.
Mike, stop right there. Let's ask the question. I think it is. Mr. Quinn, is that a problem, or counsel?
Mr. Lucio, you can testify that the
counsel, you can just make a proffer.
Definitely the used cars is accessory to the new cars. If nothing else, there twice as many new cars as used cars are sold. And of course, it's a dealership. It's got signage for the new cars, not the used cars, or much more signage for new cars.
Yeah, I think they go hand in hand, but.
Okay, and the lots are going to merge, right, gentlemen?
No.
Why not?
It's three separate owners, one lease, it's one lessee as to all three lots. But as the board found in 2016, that it's a common lessee, and that satisfies the requirement.
Okay, from a land use perspective, I get it, but from a land use perspective, as far as I'm concerned, the lots are merged from a land use perspective, not from a real property perspective. Just as if you were renting 3 parcels and they all had land leases.
They'll merge. Okay, I just wanted to make
You're
sure
right with
we're
that,
talking
Jay?
about merging ownership.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm sorry, Michael.
No, that was good. I accept what was put on the record there. So since the landscaping plan is up, I think, and I did provide some Google Earth. They were on the Google Drive. The Commerce Drive has a substantial number of existing deciduous trees, and Mr. Quinn's landscaping plan shows, and I believe they're 5 to 6 foot tall green giants. So I think there's a very adequate buffering on Commerce Street, which would separate the view of any user of Commerce Street to the site. They have boxwoods between lots 4 and 5, and as he described in the interior islands, if we can move forward towards the Hillside Avenue frontage, there are some existing trees, and maybe we can just clarify which ones would remain. It looks like we're gonna lose 2 of the existing trees. I see the X's there. And maybe, right where your cursor is, looks
Yeah.
like there's 2 coming out there.
That's right. Another one here.
And there should be a couple remaining, but probably only 2, right?
That's right. 2 there, 1 here, Michael, and 1 there. That's actually shown to be dead. It says dead on the sketch, but there are 2 circles shown here. So
Okay,
we've got 2 shade trees, 1 here, 1 here, ginkgos. So there's, looks like, based on what the chairman's saying, we can add some in the center here.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
the point, to add
Yeah.
some additional tree or 2 there, and perhaps some of the more screening type of things. Again, nobody's if somebody's driving down Hillside Avenue, they've already passed the driveway to enter that site. And we could beef that up a little. So I trust that that can be accomplished.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think that's
Yes,
not a
we can
problem.
do that.
I'll leave it to, as a condition, if the board acts favorably, the condition will be that you will satisfy Mr. Disco with adding in some trees there. If the landscaping plan is satisfied to him, the board will be comfortable with that.
Fair enough.
I think beyond that, in my review that it was initially written, there was some concern as to whether handicap accessibility was required. We did get a determination from the access board that this is, as vehicle storage, does not require that. So I would amend the memorandum to reflect that there is no accessible parking or access routes required for this lot. And then also, I would amend my memorandum based upon discussions with Mr. Quinn and discussions with DEP, because they did just revise the major development stormwater management requirements. And because the lot coverage is being reduced and there's no drainage area changes that increase, he would be exempt from providing many of the requirements normally necessary to gain the major development stormwater permit. So from a drainage standpoint, it is effective, and certainly from a sanitary sewer perspective, not having a building there with customers and employees, as in the past, certainly reduces the amount of sanitary sewer flow, and certainly no mitigation would be required.
Mike, we didn't talk about the EV station,
That's correct.
right?
The-
I think, I don't know.
The EV would also fall by the wayside based upon the subsequent discussions that it's vehicle storage and not a customer parking area. Would you agree with that?
Yes,
That was
absolutely.
my understanding of it after we probed to it and talked to various people. By all means, if Keenan had a different view of that, I'm more than,
Yeah,
we should
that's on my
discuss.
list of things when we go over to him to ask him. But
Okay.
anything further, Mr. Disco?
No, as long as there's, safe access for truck, which I think Mr. Quinn touched on. I don't know what the frequency of deliveries is. That could be put on the record, I suppose.
So, as any condition of approval, I'd like the Mr. Quinn to show us a diagram. It could be to Mr. Disco to satisfy that the fire trucks can fit around. You get the measurements of our trucks from our fire department. That there's complete circulation through there.
We have your fire vehicles maneuvering. We have it.
Okay. Well, you can work that out with Mr. Disco to make
Yep.
sure that that's
Yep,
acceptable.
not a problem. Not a problem.
Okay, Keenan. What do you think, Keenan? Obviously, you could start with the EV question because that was one of my questions.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Mike has just covered most of the site design aspects, including the landscaping. I did raise the issue of the EV charging ordinance and whether or not that's applicable, but it sounds like we've gotten some direction on an interpretation, which makes sense, which is that the chargers aren't needed for an auto storage lot. So really, other than that, I think we just covered most of the comments that are in my letter. And, I'm satisfied at this point.
Okay, perfect. And you agree with from a conditional use with the used cars versus being an ancillary, being an add-on as opposed to a business?
Yeah, they've provided the testimony that we requested. So I think that they're in compliance with all the applicable conditional use standards.
Okay, perfect. Let's open this up to the board to ask some questions. We can pull this off the screen so the public, we can see our board's faces. So let's go, Mayor Kaiser.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Committeeman Huber.
I'm good. And all questions were answered.
Yep. Mr. Barnett? You always have something.
Of course I do. So first of all, I'm really happy that we're getting rid of the remains of the old tile building. And overall, I don't have any issues, any major issues with this plan. I did want to just get a little more information about the lighting. So we are going to grant a variance because the lighting has to be a little bit higher than our ordinance, correct? So can we discuss why that is?
Well, it was requested from my standpoint, it was requested that we maintain a brighter illumination. I mean, you may hear testimony from the operational individual about why, but in general, car dealers like to see it a little bit lighter. It makes people feel a little more safer, a little bit more secure. And actually, 1.4, which is what the average is on this site, is relatively low for a dealership of any kind. 0.4, by the way, which is what your average is very low. It's usually relegated to things like pedestrian walk areas and stuff like that. But again, it's just that they prefer it through operation. They know what they like it a little brighter, and that was the request made of us. It was to illuminate it to that degree.
So and because of that raised height, is there any issue with light spilling over? I know there's residential across hillside and sort of up a little bit, but any issue with light spilling over into that area?
These are LEDs. I didn't get into it too much, but the plan actually shows what the fixture heads look like. They're LEDs, downward directed LEDs. There is a bit of a crest, but then it starts to drop down again. But the thing about LEDs, the beauty of them is their light is so localized that they have very little spillage. So I don't anticipate any problem, neighbor-wide problem as a result of the lighting that's proposed for this lot.
Mr. Quinn, you'll work with Mr. Disco on try to see how you can eliminate or reduce the area on the hillside and 22 area over there.
Yeah. Now we left it because generally you like a little more light, but I can easily bring that down. That's not a problem.
I think we can defer to Mr. Disco to resolve that.
Yeah, no, I'll work that out.
Yeah, there's no spill to any residential area. The blip is really focused on the egress driveway at Hillside Avenue. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is just noted in there that it's a little higher there. And I'm not going to testify as a lighting expert, but I do athletic fields all the time. And I'm always told by the experts that full moon is 1 foot candle. So when you're averaging 1.4, it's really not substantially more than what a full moon would provide typically. So just for context.
Great, thanks. Yeah, that's all I had. I do agree with the landscaping as we discussed along Hillside. That's all I have.
We should get some palm trees there, but we'll leave it to Mr. Disco to work that out. Aaron, anything?
No, I'm good. I have no questions at this time.
Ms. Ruggiero?
I don't have any questions, just a comment that yay for landscaping. So more trees are good.
Yep.
That's all I have. Thanks.
Mr. Lopes?
Yeah, maybe one thing on the lighting. So I know there's nothing proposed for lots 5 and 14. But with the new lighting on lot 4, will there be consistency in the light levels and the fixture spec across the property? Because I assume you want it to look like one property, even though it's 3 lots. So are we
You know,
going to be getting different color temperatures or lighting hotspots or anything like that?
That's a very good question, and I don't know what the answer is. I haven't been out there to see it at night. What we're showing is the typical 4000K light, which is the daylight light that you see throughout that whole corridor. I can't imagine that they don't have that there now, but I honestly don't know. So, I mean, that'll be something internally that they'll do. If they have that one area that looks, all bright and shiny and new, I'm quite certain they're going to want to upgrade their existing facility, but I can't say for sure.
Well, I think what we would say is it has to meet the minimums, which I'm sure it does, but that would be something that you would work out with Mr. Disco to make sure it still meets the minimums and it's not a safety issue. Because the board wouldn't want to approve it if there's currently not enough lighting in there right now.
On the existing, lot 5 and 14 you're talking about. Okay.
Chairman
You
Tiger,
can-
I'd suggest that Mike Disco go out 2 months or 3 months after it's operational, do an evaluation with them, and that the applicant agrees to make any changes that are necessary to make sure it's a consistent light plan for the entire parcel. That's all.
Yeah, I can
I'm
also
sure
do
Ma-
light. I can also do light readings of the existing facility and see where it's at.
Tom, you
Test it
got
that way,
quiet.
too.
That's the way we usually do it on these, Jeff, and it seems to work very
Yeah.
well.
I'm good with that. I'm sure Mr. Disco would love to spend a Friday night at Nissan World instead of
Yeah, he's
relaxing.
got his light meter, so he can go out and have some fun.
Yes. Okay, perfect.
I tried, Mike. I tried to get you out of it, but they want you to do it.
Mike goes
All good.
everywhere.
All good.
Ms. Kessel?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Yeah, so thank you. The only thing I had, and this may be a discussion with the operator, is, do we need on all 149? Can this board grant the full 149, but you only develop half of it? So we have more impervious coverage, or is it something you feel you need to have for the operation? Would that be more, I guess, the owner operator?
Yeah, I mean, we were instructed to get as many cars as you could on the lot, so
Yeah.
they would provide the reasoning for it. But yeah, to be honest, when we look at too, and I'm sure he'll fill this more in, but if you look at the area they have available on the existing lot 14, it's not a lot. So I'm sure they're pushing for space, but I'll let him answer that more directly.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so let's.
Go ahead, sorry. We're constantly looking for extra space, whether it's, rental space in places that aren't using their existing parking. We're constantly moving our cars, trying to get them in place. This just makes much more sense because it's right next door.
Okay, I get it. I was looking for a way to, we're trying to be less pavement, less drainage. There's areas of flood. That's why I want more trees to suck up water. What I was going to suggest.
I'm good. We'll give you the hillside. We'll give you the trees on hillside. We're good with that.
Yeah, no, my suggestion was, and I get why you don't want to do it, or it's something that doesn't work, was we give approval for the whole 149. We put in one area where it says future to be developed if you need it, and you don't have to come back for the board, but at least is something where it's less impervious coverage. But it sounds like you need the spots. You're looking for spaces. It's a valid concern, but I wanted to throw that out there. I think the board would be comfortable with it, for the reasons that you've said. All right, nothing further. Counselor, do you want to start with your next witness, and then for any members of the public, we're going to open this up at the end, and you'll be able to question all witnesses as opposed to doing one at a time.
I think that Mr. Luzio has participated. Certainly, if the board has other questions of him, I'd invite them to ask those questions, but I don't want to belabor things with a formal presentation.
Okay, so then a question that I would have that I brought up, and then we'll open up to the board, is, you have 149 spots. I said this in the beginning. Is it safe to say we're not going to see cars behind cars?
Never.
Never blocking in that those paths.
I guess never say never, but that there could be that one-off. But that our operation, 11 stores in the New Jersey, is we absolutely make sure that our cars are parked in the proper spaces.
Okay. The building that's currently up there now, that's being taken down. Is it safe to say that we could do the The building will be knocked down and completely gone within 60 days of adoption of this board's resolution. I mean, it's been up there forever. It's been a huge eyesore. I know it was a discussion of the municipal court. It needs to come down. That's got to be, quite frankly, you're lucky that one of my other board members, it was his birthday and wasn't there, because he would have been all over you at the beginning of the meeting that he wants the building down. So
I would have to defer to one of my other partners, but I would say 120 days, yes, but we are already working to get that building down.
well, let's compromise 90 days for resolution, because you already have 30 days between now and our next meeting. So there's your 120 days.
Jay, you good there?
Yes. So I think that could be software. Okay, Mr. Disco, why don't you start with any questions that you may have of the operator, and then Mr. Keynes, and then we'll go open to the board.
I think from an operation standpoint, it was really the frequency of deliveries of the car trailers, just to get a sense of, what we're dealing with. Or if this is very infrequent and the cars are just really, replaced as they're sold.
They're pretty much replaced as they're sold. And I think as Mr. Quinn said, I mean, there's enough egress for them to get in and out of there. Actually, more egress than most of our lots.
Okay. I don't have any other operational questions.
Mr. Keynes?
I have nothing. I got a list of conditions, but it seems pretty straightforward, Chairman Cog.
No, I agree. Mr. Hughes?
Nothing further.
Okay, so before we open to the board, I know this was before our board in 2016, which we pretty much have the same membership. I know it's been before the zoning board before. If the board would act favorably, any and all conditions from any other resolutions would all apply. So I just want to make Counselor aware of that.
Okay.
That's including the zoning board conditions from 2006.
That's correct, David. Everything that the board previously did is still in full force and effect. And it might be a good idea for Mr. Quinn, who reads very carefully, to just make sure that all the other items from previous approvals have been complied with. Okay, sir?
Perfect.
Let the record
Okay,
show he
let me-
just nodded yes.
Yes, sir.
Let me open it up to the board for any other questions for the operator. Mayor Keisner?
I don't have any questions at this time for Mr. Luzia.
Okay, Committeeman, Mr. Huber?
I'm good.
Mr. Barnett?
Nope, I'm good.
Aaron? Where's Aaron?
I'm right here. I'm good.
Okay, Mrs. Ruggiero?
Nothing for me.
Mr. Lopes?
Questions?
Mrs. Kessel?
No questions.
Okay, and I have no other questions. Okay, so I'll take this opportunity. I'm going to open up to the public. So at this time, let me first say this. Counselor, is there any other witnesses that you wish to call?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Perfect. Okay, at this point, Apu, I'm going to take this opportunity to open it up to the public. Any members of the public that wish to speak on Nissan World for lots 4, 5, and 14 of block 3101?
Seeing none.
Okay, we don't see any of that. I'm going to close this matter to the public and remand it back to the board. So for the board, I think it sounds like they agreed, whether reluctantly or not, that 90 days from the resolution being adopted, which will be our March meetings, March 7th, I guess, that the building will come down. They can work with Mr. Disco to apply for all permits and so forth. They have to still work with the building department just because of shutting off utilities and so forth and everything that could be in that area. They've agreed to additional landscaping. And I'd like to say a good amount of landscaping on that hillside. Things more trees are better on that side, and they'll satisfy Mr. Disco for that condition. They've also agreed that maybe on the one chance that there'll be a car in the middle, but for a short period of time, there is no intention of stacking the parking all through the lots and so forth. It's 149 spaces, and that's it. And it's no customer parking. That's why there's no additional handicap parking and so forth. All conditions from prior resolutions would take effect with our board's passing of this as well. Mr. Keynes, did I miss anything?
There were a number of others, but I'll put them in the draft resolution.
Resolution. Okay, so So then I'm going to see the board. I'm going to go around. Well, actually, we already went around, so there should be nothing. So can I entertain a motion with what I outlined?
So moved as outlined by the chairman.
Can I second it?
Second,
Can we have a roll call?
Mr. Barnett,
Yes to approve.
Committeeman Huber,
yes.
Mayor Kaiser,
Yes, with those conditions.
Mr. Lawfer,
Yes to approve.
Ms. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kessel,
Yes.
and Chairman Tiger.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes, but I want to be uber clear with the applicant that I'm marking on my calendar 90 days from March 7th, and so is the board, because that's been up there forever. Please make sure that building is completely taken down. It's a great time. It'll be June. It'll be nice warm weather, daylight savings times. We won't be worried about foot candles at that time. Let's make sure that building's taken down.
Thank
Chairman
you.
Tiger, I was going to actually tie that into the receipt of a temporary final CO to use the property, and that way Michael can just watch it. I think that's even easier, but I'm going to put the 90 days in anyway.
Yeah, Michael knows that I'm going to call him the day before the 90th day and say, why isn't
I
the
know.
building down? If
And he
there's an
loves,
issue,
he loves
right?
to talk to you, but if he can avoid that conversation, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
If not, Jeff going out with his sledgehammer and hard hat, and he'll take care of it himself.
Exactly. All right. Well, good. So I think motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck. Get more cars, because I see there's not many cars on the lots to begin with.
Thank you.
Yes. Good luck. Okay. So our next meeting will be March 7th at 6:30 p.m. on this same very Zoom. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, actually, I have to open up to the public. Any members of the public wish to speak on any and all business before this board? Approved?
Seeing none.
Yeah, I didn't think there would be none. So we're going to close it, and we're going to entertain a motion. Mrs.
Wait,
Kessel's
when
going
are
to
you
make a
gonna
motion
go
to
back to
adjourn.
live? When are you going back to live?
The plan is to go back to live with our April meeting.
You're dragging your feet.
We're planning on going. I think the board will talk about it.
I think we're getting good work done here in a nice, comfortable, safe environment.
Yeah, I
It's
think that
safe.
by April, I'm hoping things will be better, and it'll be something that the board will discuss, because I want the board to be all in agreement with going back in April, as opposed to it being, our decision, one person's decision. So for now, we'll adjourn till March 7th at 6:30 on Zoom, and one of the agenda items our board secretary will add for discussion of our when the right time to be an in-person meeting will be.
Motion.
Thank you, guys.